office. I know many of you, but not all of you that I see here on the participant list. Thank you all for being here. As I said in the chat box, this is an important topic for us to cover. This is our 5th webinar in our diversity series. And, you know, same as the others, a very interesting topic, but certainly we're talking about communities as we have been this series that we don't often talk about. So it's great that you're all here. I personally appreciate your interest in it and look forward to seeing what we can do personally, professionally as a CCR moving forward. This is part of our coordinated community response team. Thank you to the Department of Human Rights for helping us with this series. We could not have done it without human rights, and specifically Monica Stone, who has worked her tail off to help us get this together. So thank you very much to you, Monica. If you are not a member of the Coordinated Community Response Team, also known as the CCR, also known as ILAST, at least for the foreseeable future until we come up with a better name, and you are interested in being a part of the CCR, please do let us know. We don't require too much of you except your presence and your brain power. You know, no fees, so we're free fun. There's, you know, a bonus there, and we're good people, and you know, generally we're pretty positive, fun, seeking, good people. So I invite you to be a member. All you need to do is email me and or Mary Peterson, who also, we could not do these webinars without Mary either. So a special thank you to Mary for all the work that she puts into it. But all you have to do is email one or both of us, and poof like magic, you're in. Please do that. Let's see, we have a CCR meeting coming up next Tuesday. We would like you all to be there as well. We will be talking about a program that they have in Florida called Seniors versus Crime. I think it's a misleading name for their program, but it is basically a program across Florida where they have satellite offices in various locations where older people can come and actually speak to someone about their issues, any issues at all. And these are resources for them, experts available to help them resolve problems, address problems, get help, get connected. So we're going to talk a little bit about that program, and we'd certainly like your input and insight into that. Without further ado, we want to get to the topic at hand. We have 3 great panelists. I will let Monica introduce them, or let them introduce themselves, however it's been decided, and I will let Monica introduce herself as well. We are in for some good information today. So thank you, and let's go.
Oh, great. Chantal, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being there where you are, here with us. As Chantal said, my name is Monica Stone, and I do have the honor of serving as your moderator for today's webinar. And, you know, like all of us here on Earth, I'm aging. But I've tipped over into that group that people think of when they think of aging. I mean, you know that group, the group of how can I be an AARP member? How did that happen? But thankfully, our opportunities to be healthier and possibly happier as we age continue to grow. But we don't need academic studies or lots of experts to tell us that as we age, the culture that's our connection to our families and our communities and our world becomes even more important. When we think about well-being, it's really fundamentally tied to how we see ourselves and the health of our relationships with others. I think COVID has answered that fundamentally for us all. When Chantal first talked about this webinar series on culture and aging, I knew that it was a really great idea, and I'm super delighted that she asked us to be a part of it. My work with the Department of Human Rights, I have 2 roles. One is the Deputy Director of the agency, but the role that provides the chance for me to really make life better for Iowans every day is as the Division Administrator for Community Advocacy and Services. This little, sometimes hidden gem within state government is comprised of subject matter experts in the field of culture and advocacy. The division is made up of 7 offices, and each of those offices develops deep and meaningful relationships within the communities they serve through our work and through the work of 7 corresponding commissions. These offices and commissions are our Status of Women, Latino Affairs, Deaf Services, Persons with Disabilities, and the 3 offices that are represented here today: Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs, Status of African Americans, and Native American Affairs. And just a note, I think sitting in with us today on the webinar are Tina Shaw, Kim Cheeks, and Jill Fulatano Avery, who lead the work of those offices. Much of that work centers on helping Iowans connect into opportunities for success. And these connections can look very different depending upon each person's own life experience. And because as we move through life, we amass different beliefs, values, traditions, languages, social styles, by the time we're in our 50s and 60s and beyond, those of us who are aging are also the people with the most diverse backgrounds of anyone else in the population. Of course, one foundational aspect of that diversity is our race and all of the culture that's connected to it. As service providers, I think all of us know that the golden rule, treat others as you would like to be treated, really isn't so golden after all. The real rule, and sometimes I jokingly refer to that as Ned-Log-Eler, which is golden rule backwards, is to treat people the way they want to be treated. Today, it's with tremendous pleasure that I introduce you to our panel of 3 incredibly talented, experienced, well-connected women who I know live by the Ned-Log-Eler. They're here to offer valuable insight into treating people the way they want to be treated from their cultural perspective, their community perspective, and likely some personal perspective as well. They in turn represent the Asian and Pacific Islander, African American, and Native American communities. I've asked them to spend about 15 minutes each to start us off in a discussion from their cultural vantage point, and we'll use the rest of our time together in question and answer. I'll introduce each of these fabulous women before they speak. And as they're speaking, if you in the audience have questions and want to type them into the chat, after you've had a chance to meet them and learn from them, we'll have some time for questions. And now I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Lisa Ung. In her career, Lisa is a financial professional, but I Googled Lisa because that's one of the ways you get to know people these days. And when I Googled Lisa, what I saw was numerous pages of articles about her caring work in the community and making Iowa a better place, particularly for Iowa's elderly. Lisa is a refugee from Laos who came to the United States in 1984 with her parents and 2 sisters. Her family first moved to California and then to Des Moines in 1986. She currently resides in Des Moines with her husband and her boys. And Lisa was the volunteer chair for 3 years with Celebration, was on the board of directors for Monsoon Asians and Pacific Islanders in Solidarity, and the YMCA Supportive Housing Campus. She's also an ambassador with Cultural. When her schedule allows, Lisa, which sounds like it's not very often, Lisa loves to cook and travel with her family. And now I'd like to turn the mic over to Lisa.
Thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this. It's such an honor. And thank you for Tina always thinking of me. When being in the community, being the Asian community, it's almost like anything that happens it's almost like a hush hush, like they don't want anybody to know what's going on inside their hardship. If they need anything, if they were to ask for help, it seems like it's looked upon on, frowned upon in not in a good way. But in my community work over the past 6 years, helping them with their insurance needs and also, trying to help them with getting assistance through Medicaid or even all those things, I find that the resources are out there, but it's not getting to them. There's only a few of us, and I could probably name, just a few in our community in Des Moines that actually go above and beyond to help the elderly. Sorry. to help the elderly in getting what they need. You know, I go to Tina a lot for, hey, I have this situation. How can I help? What can I do for them? And like I said, the resources are there, but it's just not they're not aware of it. And the language barrier has been an issue, is an issue, and probably will be an ongoing issue. So I'm bilingual in Lao, Thai, and I understand Thai Dom. And you know, when I call different providers, it's really hard requesting those languages. You know, Vietnamese is popular, right? Spanish is popular, but when you get to like the smaller community, it's very hard to get a translator. So a lot of the times, you know, they won't allow us to translate. It needs to come from a company that they contracted with. But again, it's very hard to get that particular that really speaks their language. So that's another thing. One thing I find is, you know, when somebody is coming to our home, or even my dad's house, you know, because I'm his caregiver, recently was assigned that, and when a nurse comes and stuff like that, you know, culturally, when we go to somebody's house, we take off our shoes. You know, we greet them, but I've noticed that when they come in, you know, they don't ask, hey, would you like me to take off my shoes? They just walk right in with their shoes, and kind of like a no-no in our culture, you know. But I know they won't say it, but the kids will hear about it later. So that's just one thing that I just wanted to mention. Another thing is, in our culture, we're very, I mean, you know, we're very, very polite. If one of our elderly was to get a gas and stuff, the first thing they do is, what can they give to those, you know, people? So they'll, you know, get them coffee, water, or what it is. Take a sip, or take it with you, you know, so you're not disrespecting them. But I love what I do. But all I can say is the resources are there, but how can we get those resources to them? We don't have, and I say this all the time, we don't have a center for our Asian elderly that could go, hey, you know, these forms are so confusing. How do I fill this out? Can you help me? Or at least, you know, can you help my kids in understanding what it is? So that's I'm sorry, I was reading the the message there. So that's where my concern has always been, is where are you know, is there a place that could help them with all these things? Or, you know, I see so many families that are struggling, that are kind of like me, in we call it the sandwich generation, right? We have our kids, so we have our own family that we have to take care of, and we have our parents, right? And trying to find that middle ground of, hey, I got to run him here, I got to run him there, I got to do this, do that, you know. And as much as I am so for transportation, like, yes, I could call somebody to come pick him up, but, you know, they're so afraid to get into a car or get into a transportation without knowing who that person is, right? It's the fear. And especially, well, I don't understand, or I don't know to tell them where I need to go, or, you know, where I need to be picked up and all that stuff. I mean, and all these resources that maybe I can refer them to or help them with, when they call, it's very hard. It's prompt 1, prompt 2, prompt 3, and then it goes to another series, and type in 1, type in 2. So by the time we actually get a live person, they're already so confused. So I don't know if we could simplify it more, make it easier somehow. And I know it's hard. I mean, it's hard because it's all in the funding, right? All company, we have to have the right funding in order to get those resources there and to assist them. But that's kind of why I was really interested and wanted to be a part of this, because I want to know, how I could help, what else I could do to get the resources to them, or even share it to my other colleagues that, that are a big help in the community. That's all.
Great. Lisa, thank you very much. I know that one of the most important things that can happen is for people to understand the pathways of working with people in different cultures and understand those folks who are that open door to make things better. Lisa is one of those people. And so for those on the phone, not to complicate Lisa's life even more, make it so she can't do the cooking and traveling that she loves to do. But those connections are so incredibly important. So thank you. I know we'll have plenty of time for questions as we move forward. I would like to now introduce you all to Janice Edmunds-Wells. Janice has significant educational and professional qualifications, which I promise I'll tell you about. But I do want you to know about Janice that she's also one of those people who, when she sends you blessings, she really means it. She's just one of the most lovely people I know. She holds a master's degree in social work and also holds the Certified in Public Health Professional designation. She is the retired founder and executive director of the Office of Minority and Multicultural Health with the Iowa Department of Public Health. Her expertise includes health disparities, health equity, community engagement, and program-specific educational and service delivery. Her minor for her undergrad degree from Penn State was in geriatrics, and work experience began with the Assisted Care Stephen Smith Geriatric Center for the African American Communities in her native hometown of Philadelphia. She moved here about 30 years ago to work in public health and with the senior African American communities in the state of Iowa. And I know she spent a little time with us here at the Department of Human Rights within all of those things. And so now I would like to turn the floor over to Janice.
Thank you, Monica. And I want to give a special thank you to Kim Cheeks for having enough faith and confidence and trust in me to serve on this panel this morning. And to each and every one of you this morning, I say good morning. The face of the elderly population, especially in the areas of elder care regarding active senior living, nursing home living, is changing. I am an example of being on the forefront of this issue regarding services, including housing, transportation, things of this nature, specifically at this time in the history of being a Black African-American female, 68 years old, and living in Iowa. I am the next generation, the baby boomers. Lisa talked about the sandwich generation, which we're also a part of. And our needs, our wants, our capabilities, our quality of life goals, and ambitions vary just as much as each individual does. From a generational perspective, which is how I always focus in on issues pertaining to diverse populations, you have to understand that each generation has specific examples. For example, my parents' generation believed that you were maintained in your home as long as you could. You didn't go to nursing homes, and if you did go to a nursing home, that was essentially a place to die. So basically, the senior citizen population, they learned how to sustain themselves and have a decent quality of life as long as they could. Okay, but then as you get older and you notice the increase in things like Alzheimer's or physical disabilities or mental disabilities, a lot of times the care and assistance that's needed also has to become diversified. They believe that you went from your physical home to your home with your shell or your body, the cemetery. They used to say, you know, I'm going from my home to the next home and my physical being would be buried and my soul would go on to heaven. But now you have people that are living longer and some require different services than others. And we also know that in this age category, especially with the baby boomers, and the need for assistance and care is being diversified. Now, I was blessed that when I first moved here to Iowa, I was encased in love by the senior population here. Mostly all the people that I was close to were already in their 60s and 70s, but they still had an active quality of life. They were still going to the Y, to water exercises. We still had a lot of social organizations and civic organizations that had been developed here in the state due to certain segregation issues that were still thriving. Like you had the Monarch Club, you had the Mary Church Terrell Women's Group, you had the United Association of Negro Women, you had your sororities and fraternities like the Kappas, Omegas, you had the Deltas, you had the AKAs, and all of them every year had these big balls and civic events and things where we would get dressed and go to. So there was also a different quality of life pertaining to what some people may be experiencing now, and specifically with the pandemic going on. I find that faith within our population has a lot to do with pride, asking for services, asking for help. As Lisa has already said, the services are out there, but you really have to search for them and you really have to find them. What I am finding out is now going around looking, for example, alternative living, because a lot of times when you get to be this age, you want to start downsizing. But as a minority, also, where are the places that you will feel welcomed, okay? You have a lot of places where sometimes the African-American that's going in might be the first one that's in there. I notice how I am treated even when I go to visit different facilities or different condominiums or different active senior citizen quality of lifestyle. But I think something that Lisa has already spoken to that needs to be addressed by everyone is this issue of respect. In the African-American community, we have a saying, at least from my upbringing, that you put a handle on it. You don't call the seniors by their first name. You call them Mr. Tom or Miss Mary or Miss Betty, or you call them sir or ma'am if you don't know their name, but you allow that respect to build that open door, that gateway to having a relationship. And I realize in these days and times with managed care and everything like that, and all the things that, you know, all the first line providers and service people are going through, that sometimes you may not think about that, but that is a very key element in building relationships, because we have to get back to some of the old school ways. I always believe the old school ways are the good ways, and they helped us become the individuals that we are today. As Monica already said, treat people the way you want to be treated. You know, we used to have a great deal of respect for the knowledge and wisdom and understanding that seniors had. People in my generation, we were raised to listen, even if we didn't agree, to at least listen, because there are many things that you would learn to help you survive during these days and times. So just briefly, some of the things that you're here are indigenous to all populations, and some of them even more so within our populations of diversity. So I hope that helps, and I look forward to hearing from others. So thank you once again for allowing me this opportunity.
Sorry, I think I have too many computers going at once here. Thank you so much, Janice, for those insights. For folks who've been making comment in the comment box, know that I've been paying attention to that, and we will address some of the questions and comments that you've been making as we move forward. One in particular is around language and person-specific, person-first language that I'm gonna love for us to talk about as we move forward. I've learned a lot from Janice over the years, and so I know that she's shared a lot already, and we'll have more to share as we move forward. And next, I would like to introduce you to Karen Mackey. Karen works very closely with us at the Department of Human Rights. She almost can't escape us. We must be her part-time, almost full-time job. She's both a member of our department's board and is the chair of the Commission on Native American Affairs. Karen's that perfect mixture of the heart and strength that it takes to work in the world of human and civil rights. She's an enrolled member of the Santee Sioux tribe of Nebraska and holds a bachelor's degree in sociology as well as a Juris Doctorate. She's a member of the bar in both Iowa and Nebraska. Her professional career has spanned being a public defender for the Omaha tribe of Nebraska and working for Gateway Computers. And in 2004, she became the executive director of the Sioux City Human Rights Commission, where she is still doing her phenomenal work. Her list of accomplishments is long and varied. And so Karen has a lot of experience with a lot of different things, but some that I think give you a sense of the breadth of Karen's interests are that she's a 6th-degree black belt in judo. She's a lay leader for the First Unitarian Church, and she's the co-founder of Siouxland Pride Alliance. There's a long list beyond that as well, but at this point, I'd like to turn the floor over to Karen.
Good morning. Ampetawashte. Wambadi Chante Wiyan Imakyapi. My name is Eagle Heart Woman. My English name is Karen Mackey. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate today. I am just sitting in awe of the two women that came before me. They are so very eloquent in their presentations. It was interesting because there are some similarities across culture, and there are of course differences, but we are always more alike than we are different. So the perspective I'm going to be speaking from today is as a queer person of color, as an Indigenous woman who is also a lesbian. And so I think it's important to understand that that's my perspective. And I'm going to be talking about both the issues facing Native people and the issues facing elderly LGBTQ people. So, you know, some of our state's great strengths in this field are also our greatest weaknesses, frankly. We have great people that work in the field, but we don't pay them enough. Especially our frontline people, you know, the people that go to people's homes if they're aging in place or that work in nursing homes. We just do not pay them what they are worth. It is hard, difficult jobs, and they should be paid accordingly. I am, you know, also a boomer. I've had my two in-laws, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, both had to be placed in nursing homes. And that was actually a real blessing. They were in rural nursing homes near here. It was actually in Nebraska, but only about 35 miles away in their hometown. And I always had a negative impression of nursing homes, I guess, before that, but it really was a blessing. The staff was loving, dedicated. They were just amazing. And some of that came from the fact that they had known my mother-in-law and father-in-law probably their whole lives. You know, they were people my age or younger who had grown up in that community. And so these were people who were just a part of their lives and now were needing to live in a nursing home. And so they knew who they were, they accepted them for who they were. And it was just all around a good thing. So I think that can be a real blessing, that if someone does end up in a nursing home and they're already from that community, that they may have a good experience. it can also be our greatest weakness, because when you're thinking about people of color, about natives, people do not understand our culture, and also do not understand that there's cultural variations. All Native people are not the same. People are from different nations, and people have different levels of acculturation. So some people may be very acculturated to the Washishu, the white way of doing things, and they may be very Christian and may just fit in very much. They're have brown skin, but they are very much acculturated to a white way of doing things. And then there are people, and we are across the spectrum. There are people who maybe are pipe followers, and they've not even necessarily perhaps been around people who are non-native very much. And so that can be an issue, is that I think people that work in the field do need more training, so that they understand a wide variety of people. And then when it comes to LGBTQ people, that it could be especially bad, frankly, aging. And often if you end up having to like move into a senior living center or a nursing home, people end up going back in the closet, because it is the only safe way for them to be in that living situation, is to deny who they are, to deny their own humanity. So I do think, we need to continue to work at ways to help people age in place, so they do not have to go into assisted living or nursing homes, and that they age in place with their families and whoever family is. And especially if you're an LGBTQ person, who you consider your family might not be who the broader culture considers their family. As I said before, we need to pay people appropriately for their work. This is important work. It's honorable work. It's sacred work, and people should be paid for that. And then when I think about places like our senior center here in town, I know that they are somewhat culturally diverse, but the expectation that I think people of color in our community have is that it is predominantly upper middle class white people that go there. And so they're, and heterosexual. And so they are not inclined to go there. So I think finding ways to make senior centers more accessible to all people, and that all people aren't just tolerated, but that we are honored and celebrated. And that is the thing that when we go into a space like that, we feel like we are the other, and we are the only person there who is different. And no one wants to be in some place where they're the only one. And one of the issues when it comes to Native people is that our people overall tend to be on the lower socioeconomic level. And so as much as families want to help, they do not always have the resources to help family members in the ways that a senior family member needs. One of the positives in the Native community is that elders are honored and cherished in our community, and that families will go to extraordinary lengths to try to keep an elder in the home, and to keep them active in the community, and both at a family level and in the larger Native community. You see that that's true, that we really honor the fact that someone has lived a long life, and that we try to make sure that we integrate our elders fully into the Native community. The LGBTQ community is not similar at all. as we age in the queer community, we tend to be put off to the side. Because especially among LGBTQ men, youth is something that is celebrated. And I think queer men are missing out on something if they don't listen to their elders, because it's their elders that fought for the rights that they now have. But that is an issue. The other thing to look at is just the loneliness, especially LGBTQ people who might not have actual relatives that they can rely on. They may have their extended non-related family that they can rely on, but they may or may not have children. They may have been disowned by their family, and so may not know their nieces and nephews, may not have had a lot to do with even siblings once they were grown up. One of the things that I think it was Lisa talked about earlier is that frequently someone that has a caregiver come into the home may offer coffee or some type of food, and it's important to take it. It's the same thing in the Native community. You're always going to be offered food, and it is an insult to not take it. It doesn't matter that you're not hungry. It doesn't matter that you're not thirsty. You're going to be offered something, at least something to drink, and that you have to take it and take it graciously. When I was younger and in college, my father was a college professor for a while, and he taught social work. And so he was talking to the class, and one of the things he said was, if you don't like coffee, you need to figure that out. You need to learn to like coffee, because if you walk into a native's house, you're going to be offered coffee and you better drink that. Yeah. I hate coffee. I hate the smell of it. So my workaround is always, I can't drink coffee. Could I just have a glass of water instead? Because it really is insulting when you do not accept the food that is offered to you. So you either need to accept it or find a very quick and gracious workaround where you accept something else from that person. Because I can't tell you how deeply insulting it is to have someone who will not eat your food or drink what you have offered. But I want to thank you all for the opportunity to talk today. I think I'm going to stop now and let's take some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen. And so one of the things that I'll just acknowledge is that across cultures, I think the idea of accepting the gifts that someone offers you is a wise move. I think that it's something that all cultures can understand very well. The coffee reference was one that I felt very much at home with me in my family as well. And so the first question I'd like to pose to our panelists, that Karen started down this path of talking about the strengths of caring for our population here in Iowa. One of them is that in rural communities where people have lived their entire lives, when they enter more congregate settings or assisted living settings, the people know them. And so they're going from one home to another home where people already know people care about them. That's a fabulous trait and opportunity. From experience, I can tell you that's not one everyone gets. But I know there are other strengths in our in how we care for our aging population here in Iowa. Janice, you talked about some really phenomenal social and cultural opportunities that used to be available. But what about today? What are some of the strengths that you see?
Well, I think we've always had strength in our faith-based and civic organizations. I think we've always had strength in our extended families. You've heard within all three of the presentations how even if you don't have your biological family, you have been blessed to have extended family member. I think also our tenacity and our endurance as a people. And I think that here in Iowa, it seems like as you age, there is a mindset, don't become sedentary, don't get up, move, do something, try to get involved, try to get a partner, even if you don't have a group to do different things with. So I think that one of our biggest strengths is our endurance, our tenacity, and our determination.
Thank you, Janice. Now, Lisa, I know that a lot of members of the Asian population also experience some of those get out and move opportunities and have some very deeply held beliefs around movement and other sorts of things. I'm sure those are amongst the strengths in caring for our aging population in Iowa, but are there others would you like to expand on that, or are there others you'd like to share?
We do have some community members that is very active, and even with the voting, or when there's a special event, they take it among themselves to go pick up these individual in a van, or just just kind of motivate them. But I know there could be more, like Karen was saying, and even Janice, community senior center. I love them. It's a place where they could come together, chit chat, just pass the time. But it's hard for our community because they may not feel welcome. It's the food is not to their liking because they're so used to one way. But the language barrier is they don't want to go someplace and be an outcast. But I applaud the individuals in our community that are stepping up and say, hey, let's go do this together. Let's go do that together. So they don't feel as outcasts as they should, because even in a low group, they're still welcome in whatever activities they're doing. But I know there could be more that we could do.
Thanks, Lisa. Karen, I particularly enjoyed your assessment of what happened with your in-laws in assisted living and nursing care. Are there any other strengths that you'd like to share?
So I think what can be our strengths are our other agencies in the community. I think about here in Sioux City, for example, we have our Urban Native Center that is very intentional about trying to reach out and involve our elders, especially using our elders to help teach children coming up. So they do a lot of intergenerational things. They lack funding, so it can be very difficult things they're doing. So they can't, for example, provide transportation to get there. They have to constantly find workarounds to get elders where they need to be. But I think places like that can be a real resource, is that making sure to keep elders involved in their culture, involved in the community, teaching people the appropriate ways to be. So I think that can be a real benefit. And we need to find ways to fund them appropriately, because places like that are doing the good work and doing it at a ground level. They're not necessarily focused on elders, but they're doing a lot of work with elders. So I think that's something that is positive that is happening in our state, and we need to find a way to appropriately fund those agencies so they can continue to do their work.
So the conversation about funding is one that we could probably have a whole day-long webinar on.
Sure is.
But I really do appreciate you bringing that up, because it is one of the biggest barriers, are these community-based resources for people to have access right within their community in the way that they need it. So I'm going to ask next about unique challenges for your community. We talked a little bit about some unique strengths and unique challenges. Funding, I think, is the in the way I would say it, it's the challenge that's peanut buttered across everybody. Finding a way to connect people culturally and to the right services they need is a real issue. And frankly, I'd be interested in your thoughts about where you see that funding being most effective coming from. There's been a lot of conversation in the mental health arena around that. But in other arenas, it would be interesting to hear what our panelists think about kind of some funding structures leading you in that direction, but also leading you in the direction of talking about unique challenges. And so I'll give you all a second just to kind of chew on that in your brain, and maybe start with Lisa and see if you have any thoughts around unique challenges or funding structures.
I would say, going back to the language barrier. So being in the financial, we do a lot of paperwork. We also get a lot of paperwork and help them fill out a lot of paperwork. There's always a question on these paperwork: do you want other documents in your languages, right? So I would say yes. And in Des Moines in particular, we have a pretty good population of Laotian, Taidam, and a small population of Thai. But when we mark these, the following document that come to their home, it's still in English. So even though it's asking them what other, what languages do you want these coming into, it still reverts back to English. So again, it's, everything that comes in. And I know people said, well, they've been here 30 or 40 years, and they've had the opportunity to go to school and all that. That's not always the case. My dad is 71 years old. When he came, he had to work right away, 2 or 3 jobs to support his family. And so did my mom. So they may have an opportunity to go to ESL or whatever to learn, but when would they go, right? I mean, the time is just, it's not like, hey, on Saturday or Sunday, and and I don't even know what's out there anymore, to tell you the truth, for these seniors. So I love it when people say, oh, they're in the United States, they have to learn English. Well, that's not always the case. They have family they got to raise, bills and stuff to pay. So I would really appreciate if there was any funding to maybe create a department or a small group of people that would help them read these legal documents or important stuff, or even contact them and say, hey, it's important to go get your flu shot. It's important to go get your mammogram. It's important to do these because it's going to affect you in the long run, right? We get, so I deal with, as a financial insurance agent, I deal with Aetna and United, and they do these calls once a year. They allow a nurse to come in and do their wellness, right? But again, the language barrier. When they call, it's so many phone calls, especially during Medicare season now. So many phone calls. They don't know which one is a scam. They don't know which one is trying to get into their home. It's all this fear because there's just so many letters, so many phone calls. They don't know who they could trust. So having a local place, and everything's coming out from that place, then they know, yes, this is, I could trust this person. I could trust this group. I could trust this organization. I know what they tell me, I'm going to take seriously. I'm going to listen. Right. But it's like you said, it's funding. It's really hard to steer toward a community or two, but I would love to see that happen.
Thank you, Lisa. I would too. That would be fabulous. Janice, as we talk about unique challenges or even opportunities to structure funding, you have a unique background in both living in your community and having been a part of government and thinking about funding structures. So I'd be really interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeesh. Well, what can I say? We've always been, as African Americans, disenfranchised. When you say funding, what do you mean? Do you mean as housing? Do you mean as income? Of course, you're starting to have more and more minorities that are working in the service provider, being direct care workers and nursing home workers and things like that. So of course the pay increase. And then I think it just goes back to so many times people talk the talk, but they don't walk it. And some of the things that we've discussed over and over and over and over, it may get a different name, it may get a different title, but it's really the same issues over and over again. I think, as Lisa said, if there was a central point where we as seniors could code to or contact, I know for a lot of us, we really depend on the status of African Americans. But I also know that historically, they've always been trying to get rid of any of our programs that have been there trying to service the communities of diversity. And then it falls back on those of us who are members of that community. So when you say this issue of funding, I would need to know a little more clarification as to what you are saying pertaining to funding, especially for the African American community, because we've got seniors that want to go back into the workforce. So do you mean funding to go into skills for seniors to matriculate through utilization of the technology that now it's every day is changing to keep us up to date with that? That resource can be very convoluted. We're moving from a generation of where you talk to people to now you're talking to automated systems. You're talking to people who really, if they are there, sometimes you can't understand them because so much has been outsourced. So could we switch that funding to bring it back to those within our communities that have the expertise and utilize them? So it's not one answer per se. We need affordable housing. A lot of times economically, we can't move out of the housing that we're in if we do own them homes, but then there's improvement and things like that that need to be on the home so that we can be maintained. So it's a lot.
Thanks, Janice. Yeah, and actually that you've started down an important path of identifying what are all of the categories in which people's lives are impacted and what are the ways that we need to put services in place for folks. One of our attendees commented that there's a health navigator that connects families to resources. Thank you for providing that information. I think one of the other stories in government is that there often are a lot of services and resources in small bits in different places. And if you don't have the wherewithal to go and collect all those bits together for yourself, it can be really challenging, which a commercial for our Department of Human Rights and our offices, that's one of the pieces of work that we are pleased to do for Iowans is collect all of that. Karen, I again, Janice has lived a life working in government, and you have for quite a while as well, and seen things from both the service and the government perspective. Any thoughts on unique challenges or funding structures that you think might be useful?
Well, I think I would start off with a big amen to what Janice and Lisa said, because I'm not sure what else I could add. They really spoke to a lot of the issues. I know one of the things that I see regularly is people, regardless of what their racial background is, who do not speak English. And yes, they may have lived here for 30 or 40 years, but no, they have not had the real time and ability, everything it took to become fluent in English. That's a reality, and it's a reality that many non-minority people just simply do not understand. And, they may have come here as an adult. It's very hard to learn a language as an adult, and then had to have immediately gone to work and helped their family. And they just didn't realistically have the opportunity to learn a new language as an adult. So then as they age, of course, they are much more comfortable in their native language. And then whenever agencies are dealing with them, it's very difficult really to provide the person the information they need in the language that they need. We're a little better about Spanish, but that's frankly it. And so, we will get people in our offices, and then because in government, we're not particularly well funded. We don't have the staff who speak other languages necessarily. And then we don't always have the resources to immediately be able to access people in other languages. I'm just dealing this week with a woman who called my office. She's Vietnamese. She does not speak English. I don't think we have anyone in our building that speaks Vietnamese. And she was actually she was an elderly woman trying to deal with her Section 8 issue. And calling us in desperation. And yes, we were able to reach out to Section 8, but my staff could barely understand anything other than her last name, because we don't have someone in the office that we could quickly access that spoke Vietnamese. And that is always a problem. People then are, given documents in English and expected to sign them and understand what's going on. We have all those issues, but there's, I think another issue I want to talk a bit about that Janice spoke of is the issue of affordable housing, which is an issue for people of all generations, but is especially problematic for elders. And in the Indigenous community, we are it's very likely that we never owned our home in the first place, that we were renters our entire life. And so then finding someone who's aging, who does not have the financial resources, they were a renter, very likely never made very much money, were always in a very precarious financial situation, and then needing to find alternative living. That can be very difficult. I have a friend who's a few years older than me, but never got past the 8th grade, has some physical limitations, and she's been struggling the last couple of years. And it's only been in the last 3 or 4 months that she's finally been able to move into a facility where she no longer has to deal with steps. She was to the point that she was having to sit down and go up and down the steps on her behind to get in and out of her apartment. And she did not know how to deal with any of that, just really struggling with the system. And so I think we need, more people to help serve as navigators, to get through the system, to fully access it and fully access all the services that someone should be able to have access to. But thank you for that question.
Thank you. I'm writing a lot of notes that will help shape a lot of the work that we do going forward. Within our comments from today's webinar, and one of the major conversations that we've had with our panelists is, how do we show respect and caring to our elders? And we've talked about accepting gifts that are given to us as we come into a home. We've talked about addressing people with a title, Ms., Miss, Mr. And we've talked a little bit about some of the different cultural ways that we talk about people in the population who are aging for our own population. In addition to those, when you think about creating a welcoming environment or showing people that you respect them, what are some of the ways that service providers could get better at doing that, or some of the things that you think they could do, or behaviors they could adopt that might help show that respect and help people feel comfortable? And I'll pick on Lisa first with that question.
Well, what I have seen from personal experience and being there is, for some reason, providers think just because they don't understand them, it's okay to speak louder instead of speaking slower. They're not deaf, they just don't understand you. So I get that a lot, you know. It's and I don't know if it's human nature. I don't know, but yeah, they tend to raise their voice a little higher than normal, thinking that, yes, that's going to get to them. No, it really doesn't. And I mean, I'm not picking on providers, but the ones I've seen do get easily irritated and easily frustrated. You know, they really have to be a little more patient, especially when we're dealing with the seniors, and especially with people who don't understand them. Just slow down a little bit, take your time, you know, because they might not understand everything, but they may be understanding some. And don't talk above their you know, their skill level. Maybe break it down easier so that they may be able to understand. I know terminologies, I mean, even in our field could be, it's just a little too much sometime. But pick an easier word that maybe would mean the same thing, right? And yeah, and just, I think lowering our tone, right? It's all in our facial, right? In our gesture. Yes. And even though they don't understand, but at least they would appreciate what you're trying to do.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So that's what I've seen.
Right.
So Janice, it sounds like Lisa kind of hit the nail on the head there. Anything you'd like to add in terms of making feel welcome and showing people respect?
Yes, I think she hit on a key point. One of the things that I found out, not just coming from the East Coast to the Midwest, and not just coming from a large family, I'm the last one out of 8, mostly boys, is that I have to do a disclaimer. And I always start out by saying, if I'm talking too loud or too fast, just let me know. And that was reinforced by traveling abroad. And when I was talking, a lot of the, especially in France, the people said my conversation sounded like yang, 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 yang. They said, because basically Americans talk fast, okay, and we don't realize it. I also know sometimes I can talk loud when I get excited. And I have people that'll tell me, you know, like bring it down a little bit or something like that. So I'm also empowered to tell people when they're explaining things to me, I don't understand that. You got to break it down a little. You got to break it down a little bit, because I'm a senior. I'm very proud to be a senior, okay? But you got to bring it, you got to explain it that's more specific to me than just give me some broad example. Tell me how you can help me with this particular situation. So I think sometimes it's just common sense is lost nowadays. Some of the things we're saying is just basic common sense, but a lot of people don't have it. So I think little small things like those little cues is great. I think little cues are great if you're willing to take the time, if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to understand. Because if you are blessed to live long enough, you're going to be in some of these same situations, okay? So as you're learning about your client, you're also learning about skills that you will need for yourself as you age.
Great, thanks. Karen, any other thoughts on showing respect and making people feel welcome and comfortable in a setting, or at least helping them to feel more comfortable?
I think it goes back to the individual being willing to learn from the person that they are trying to help, that it really can be a two-way street. I see someone said respect. Exactly. It's about respect and showing that person respect and having a curiosity. You know, respectfully ask, you know, can you tell me about that? You know, for example, a lot of people do not understand Native culture. For example, if someone's a pipe follower, you know, we come from a very Christian-centric culture here. And we need to understand that not everyone is Christian, that people can be people of strong faith and not be Christian, but to ask questions in a respectful way. People understand when you're being respectful as opposed to asking questions in a dismissive way. But to do that, and I'd like to talk a minute about LGBTQ people and Christianity, to understand that Christianity has harmed many of us. That does not mean that queer people aren't Christian. Many of us are, but and almost all of us, even if we are not now Christian, were brought up in Christianity. That is both a positive and a negative. So that if someone comes in with a very like pushing their Christianity, I can tell you as a lesbian, it immediately puts up a barrier for me, because all too often Christianity is equated with being homophobic. And so, so people need to be careful about pushing their beliefs at all. I can tell you frankly, even when I see so much as a cross on someone's neck, it puts me back just a little bit. And that's something I have to work on, is to remember that not all Christians hate us.
Right.
That many don't, but you know, the most homophobic followers are the loudest ones, unfortunately. And so to understand that something as simple as wearing a cross might be an issue for someone who's LGBTQ or is Jewish or is non-Christian, and to be thoughtful about that and how you represent your religious beliefs, and to remember that not everyone is Christian.
You know, and that brings up an important part of a conversation when we're talking about culture and working with people across cultures, especially people who are older, potentially even who didn't grow up in our country and don't have that foundational experience that's the same across the board. So we've heard a lot in popular media about uncomfortable conversations and how important it is for people to engage in understanding one another and having those uncomfortable conversations. And from a point of very much wanting to learn this, I'm thinking about some of the people I know who are older than me, and starting an uncomfortable conversation would not make them feel at ease with me. I'll be kind and say it that way. It probably would shut down some of our opportunities for relationships. That's not true universally, but certainly could be true. So when you're a caregiver or you're working with someone, even outside of a caregiving circumstance, from a culture that's different from yours, what are some of the best ways to, you said genuinely coming with a genuine curiosity certainly is helpful. What are some of the best ways that you can say, I'm really not sure what the best thing is to do. How can I help you, or how can we connect? Do you have any advice to people about making those kinds of genuine connections?
I think doing exactly that, what you just did.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
People
Right.
understand when you are coming from a good
When
place.
you're genuine. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I find that you can kind of sense when a person is being genuine, and you can kind of sense when they're being nosy. You can kind of sense when
Yes,
they're
you
being
can. Yes.
you can kind of sense when they're being prejudiced. You can kind of sense it, but there's also something that has come up in this dialogue that I want to say, get ready. And that's the point where Karen brought up about the LGBTQ elderly aging population. I know when I first moved to Iowa, it was like, get ready, Iowa, because the demographics are going to start changing. And it's not going to be just biracial, black, white. It's going to be children that the mom was 3 things, the dad was 4 things. So that makes the child 7 things.
Yep.
So aside from that, now I'm seeing in Iowa, especially with the baby boomers and society becoming more accepting and opening of the LGBTQ community, get ready, because this is an excellent example to how to be on the forefront rather than be reactive, to start being proactive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people need to understand it's a 2-way street when you're a provider. You learn from your clients, and your clients are also learning from you. And it goes back to that old thing of relationships. You have to have a foundation. And I think if you're honest, and if you don't know, seek out somebody who's willing to talk to you about it, and realize that they're talking to you in a safe place about it, in a safe conversational place as well as physical place. I think these are some of the factors that will help.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. And maybe not making assumption.
Mm-hmm.
So asking a lot of questions, or asking them, and then listening. Don't just rush to answer. Give them the time, because a lot of the time they want you to hear them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So just listen. Give them the time.
Listen. Just listen. And sometimes so many times providers go in with a list of questions that they have to ask. Okay. Mm-hmm. But make those questions more of a dialogue. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you'll even find out in that dialogue with them that they're answering some of the questions that you have to have the answers for.
Yeah. And when you let them talk, they'll just keep telling you more, and you'll understand more, and you'll learn more from them.
Mm-hmm.
And when they start talking, because a lot of times you may be the only contact that they have, you just develop techniques like, like she said, the face, yes, okay, well, that was so interesting, but now I have to move on to this, okay? But I want to thank you for sharing that with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, Janice. I'm gonna record that actually to use in my life. So I'm actually going to throw you a little bit of a curveball. I didn't let any of our panelists know that I might ask them about how COVID-19 has impacted their community and the older population. And so this might be something that I'm asking you to do very much off the cuff. But how do you think some of the isolation and then the fear. I guess I'm answering my own question. People feel isolated and they're afraid. And other aspects have impacted people in your community. I'm going to start with Lisa because I know that the Asian community has had some particular challenges with COVID and some discrimination that they've experienced. And so I don't know if you have anything you'd like to share about that.
Yeah, so when COVID first hit, right, it was a little rough, not particularly here in Iowa, but, you know, all Asian keep in contact, right? California, Florida, Texas, everybody has family everywhere. So as soon as something happens, you know, a phone call and stuff, and of course it starts a chain reaction. So yes, because it was called the China flu, the Chinese flu and virus, and my husband is Chinese. So, you know, our seniors, our Asian community here felt they have to protect their parents, right? I mean, elderly are getting beat up walking down the street. New York, she was burnt. So, you know, there's a lot of things. And of course, we're protective of our parents. I mean, we only have one set of parents. So they were not going out. I mean, we started a group where we were bringing food to them, right? And it's a lot of stuff. I mean, okay, COVID itself is scary enough, but to the point where we don't want our parents to go out because they might get beat up walking down to the store or stuff. I mean, that's even worse, right? Now they can't even go to the store and you know, they love to cook, they love to eat, you know, they love to show their love to their kids, and now they can't do that. Right. So it was hard, it was rough, but I think it's gotten to that point where they're like, forget it, there's nothing we could do at this time, you know. But the kids are stepping up more, but I have seen, so I get a lot of those phone calls where they know I would just listen to them. So a lot of my phone calls are 45 an hour and a half, that they're just calling in, letting me know how their day are going, what they're running into, you know, because I don't see them face to face like they're used to, you know. So I have to tell myself, hey, it's okay if they just want to vent, if they just want to talk, because they don't have anybody else to do it, you know, with. But it's hard, I'm telling you. They're doing a lot more subscription, paying for things, watching things on TV and stuff like that. But we had a 2 or 3 elderly that passed away in our Asian community from COVID. So that's even scarier for them, right? So I think it could be, I mean, there's really nothing we could do with COVID, except just being patient with them. I wish there was a class for their kids, though, for our generation, to be like, hey, you know, you're frustrated with your family. Imagine your parents, you know, I mean, depression is probably, rates have gone up, right? And other things. So, but I understand it's hard, you know, because online, kids are learning online, so they're going to work, but their parents are now helping their kids with, you know, with making sure they wake up for school and cooking and stuff like that. It just seems like there's more work for the senior at this time, to tell you the truth, because maybe their kids can't stay home from work, so now they're watching their grandkids or even great grandkids, and I don't agree with that, obviously, but there's really not much we could do about it. That's how I feel at this time, until COVID is gone, or there's vaccine or whatever, you know, until we get back to normal. I'm not quite sure what the resources are. I would love to have a Asian community center where they could just come and hang out with their friends, their kids drop them off before they go to work, and then leave them be, and they're chit-chatting with their, you know, friends and doing things or playing cards or whatever, just so they, you know, have that a little fun. But that's going to be a long ways away.
Thanks, Lisa. Any additional thoughts on that, Janice?
I find that the hardest part is that physical contact, and we're a very affectionate race of people, as a lot of races are. And so not having that touch, what we have found in our senior community is that we take, for myself, even though I am a senior, I have a certain group of seniors that I call just once or twice a week and see if they need anything or how they doing or just to touch base with them. And it seems like that they have been very appreciative of that. Those that are isolated and those that have family around them, they just like that fact that you're checking in on them. Of course, fear, because you can do all that you can and you still might be subject to getting the COVID, and especially with the flu season and allergies and all that other stuff, you don't know what's going on. So there is a lot of fear within the seniors that I know, that for their children, for their grandchildren, for just paying attention to your body as it's aging, what symptoms might be COVID, what's not COVID, how do you stay on top of that, you know? Most of the seniors that I know, we believe in Vicks, alcohol, ginger ale. We were always raised to keep rice, flour, salt in our homes. We were always raised to stock up on stuff, especially with the winter coming. So some of this is like a no duh. We just want to enhance it a little bit, you know. And then we let each other know when different things are, like we're a store that has Clorox spray, or you know, we're some place, well, we can use wet ones, or we can use cloth and disinfectant and things like that. We go back to a lot of the old school Southern kind of ways. So the main thing is, as far as spirituality is concerned, once again, encouraging each other with the faith that we have in the Creator, that this is nothing new under the sun, but we will get through it. And we just have to have the faith that good will override evil, and that just we'll get through it.
Mhm.
Karen, you live in a particular part of the state that's seen quite an increase in COVID, although I think we're all seeing that now. Any particular thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of things. You know, we are a people who are also very physical, Native people. We shake hands. We shake hands all the time, or we hug each other. And so that has been difficult. And frankly, it's within the Native culture that, like, there are some of it we just can't not shake hands or hug. I think Native people are the only people who I have like touched during this, because sometimes we just can't, it's like we can't stop it. We're gonna have to hug that person or shake their hands. So you hope you have hand sanitizer nearby. But because we often live communally, there are, I think right now, our elders actually facing the scenario, as in the Asian community, of having more work to do. Because maybe helping more care for the children while people who are working are going out in the community. The other thing is that within the Native community, if you're urban Native as opposed to living on a reservation or on a settlement like in Tama, the resources that you might have available to you are very different depending on what Native nation you are a member of, or if you are a member of one, because not every Native person is a member of a federally recognized tribe. For example, there are people who are members of my tribe who live here in Sioux City that have not been able to get any help from our reservation, from our tribal government, even though they have COVID-19 funds to help our members. That money is being spent for the few people that live on a reservation. So it can be especially difficult. And then the non-Native community looks at us and says, well, you're Native, like, get your tribe to help you. Mm. Well, our tribe may not be helping us. And it really depends on what tribe you belong to, whether you're going to get any help from your tribe. Within the LGBTQ community, what I have seen is some of our elders, and often they're elderly and disabled, because in the Native community, we are disproportionately are people who are living with disabilities. The people I know in that situation are very isolated because they either have no access to the internet, or they, even if they have some access, they don't understand how to use it. It's something that they weren't doing before. And now that's the only way that they're really able to speak with people in the community. I have a couple of people that pre-COVID, we had a weekly support group, and really in many ways it devolved into a way to make sure that those guys like got out of their shell and they were out in the community. We had another elderly woman who her daughter's a lesbian actually, and she came every week, and she discovered really quickly that those men lived alone and they were not great cooks. And so she started bringing food to every support group. And she'd bitch about these guys eating so much. But it was funny because every week she brought a whole lot of food, and then she made sure to wrap it up. She split it between those two and gave it to them so that they had some food during the week. They don't have that now. And, you know, they're very poor. In both cases, they have community support workers that come to their house and help them. But especially when COVID first hit, it was very difficult for them, and very difficult to find cleaning supplies or anything. And they're still very isolated. One of them texts me now regularly. He knows how to text, he can do that, but he doesn't understand the internet at all. So he will text me. He texted me Wednesday morning to want to talk about the election and his hope for the future. But yes, until we have a solution to this problem, it's just going to continue.
Thank you, Karen. And leaving, we're already pushing the end of our webinar. I don't know about the rest of you, I could spend all day chatting with Janice and Lisa and Karen. I've learned a lot. I hope we've answered some questions for you, or caused some questions to be asked for you. I've written a list of things that we need to work on: funding for local resources, community centers, language access, affordable housing, community navigators. There's a much longer list than that, but those are some of the big takeaways that I have from our conversation here today. I want to thank our panelists, Janice Edmunds-Wells, Lisa Ung, Karen Mackey, for taking time today to be with us. They are phenomenal women. I count myself lucky to know them, and fortunate that it's part of my job to know them. How great is that? In addition to that, Chantal gave a lot of kudos to me, but really I need to turn that over to my team who works here at the Department of Human Rights: Jill Folitano, Avery, Kim Cheeks, and Tina Shaw, who have helped wrangle up today's webinar and some of our previous webinars as well, from other staff, Sonia Reyes and Jill also for a previous webinar. And so Chantal, with 30 seconds left in the webinar, I'm turning it back over to you. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you, all of you. This has been great, and a reminder to everybody that this is being recorded, including the chat. So if the panelists, we've been sharing with you email, contact information, those sorts of things as to the panelists. So hopefully we can do that here too. And I'll just make another pitch. These three panelists, I think we would be greatly benefited by having you as part of the CCR. These are perspectives that we don't get to hear, and we're sorely lacking. And I'm just going to say that we do good work, we do the best we can, but we only know what we know. And if folks like you aren't at the table, then those are the pieces we don't know about. And the royal we need to do better, and we want to do better. So this has been a great introduction, I think, is what I'll call it, a good start for us to start thinking about these issues and being better members of the community, better professionals, just better across the board. So I know you've given your time to be here, and we are most appreciative. So thank you. And I'm sure there will be questions coming to you. And like I said, we will be continuing to have conversations. This diversity webinar series is only intended to be the start of conversation. So conversation. And otherwise, I hope that everyone has a great rest of the day, and hopefully we will see many of you next week. Without further ado, have a good day.
Everyone. Bye.
Everyone, thank you.